There is a certain kind of pressure that doesn't feel urgent, yet never fully releases. It isn't stress in the obvious sense. It doesn't spike or overwhelm. It simply stays. You may notice it as a background tension, something that accompanies you rather than interrupts you. Even when nothing is required, something inside remains slightly braced. Even when the day slows, the body does not completely follow. This isn't because you're doing too much, and it isn't because you've failed to rest properly. It's because attention has been held outward for longer than it realizes. Modern strain rarely announces itself as overload. More often, it shows up as a quiet vigilance, a readiness without a clear object, a subtle sense of needing to stay available even when no one is asking. The body adapts to this easily, too easily. It learns to stay just a little alert, not tense enough to alarm you, not relaxed enough to settle. And over time, that in-between state becomes familiar. So familiar that it begins to feel normal. What you may be sensing now is not exhaustion. It's sustained orientation, attention pointing outward without pause. Nothing here needs correction. Nothing needs intervention. The first thing to notice is that the body is already doing far less than the mind believes. Even now, there is a deeper stillness beneath the surface activity. Even as thought moves, something underneath remains unmoved. You are not fully engaged in this tension. You are hosting it. That distinction matters. A held state does not mean something is wrong. It means something has been maintained for a long time without release. Release does not require effort. It requires permission. Notice how quickly the impulse to relax turns into another task, another subtle instruction layered on top of an already held system. Let go becomes something to do. But nothing here is asking to be let go. The body knows how to uncoil when it is no longer being asked to manage itself. The nervous system knows how to soften when it is not being watched. Right now, nothing needs to be observed more closely. Nothing needs to be adjusted. You are not here to do stillness. You are here to stop sustaining what doesn't need sustaining. There is a difference between holding attention and being present. Holding attention takes energy. Presence does not. Presence happens when attention stops reaching forward. You may notice how often awareness leans slightly ahead of itself, anticipating, preparing, scanning. Not dramatically, just enough to keep something inside engaged. This forward lean is subtle, and because it is subtle, it rarely gets questioned. But you don't need to pull it back. You only need to notice that you are not required to keep it there. The center of awareness is not ahead of you. It never was. It is not located in readiness or response. It does not live in preparation. It rests where nothing is being monitored. This rest is not collapse. It is not withdrawal. It is not disengagement. It is alignment. When alignment returns, it doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like neutrality, like the absence of a background demand you didn't know you were meeting. You may notice that the sense of me becomes quieter here. Not gone, just less involved. This is not dissociation. It is recentering. The body doesn't disappear. The mind doesn't stop. But neither is being asked to carry orientation anymore. Nothing needs to be named beyond this. If language begins to feel unnecessary, that is a sign of correctness, not confusion. The system relaxes when it is no longer being interpreted. There is a quiet intelligence in this settling. It does not need encouragement. It does not need explanation. It has been waiting for attention to stop interfering. You may notice that even the desire to stay here begins to fade. The need to preserve the feeling loosens. That is important. Presence is not a state to maintain. It is what remains when maintenance ends. The moment you try to hold it, effort returns, and effort recreates the very tension that dissolved. So nothing here is asking to be held. Let the system reorganize without supervision. Let awareness rest without direction. There is nothing fragile about this orientation. It does not break when activity resumes. It does not disappear when thought returns. It simply stops being obstructed. You are not entering a special state. You are stepping out of an unnecessary one. This is why the return feels ordinary, why it does not announce itself, why it does not reward you with sensation. It is not an experience. It is an absence of strain. Let this be incomplete. Let it remain unresolved. Nothing needs to conclude here. What happens next is almost imperceptible. There is no signal that says something has shifted, no marker that confirms arrival. And that is exactly how it should be. When unnecessary strain releases, the system does not celebrate. It simply stops compensating. You may notice that nothing in particular feels better. The day does not brighten. The body does not suddenly relax in a way that draws attention to itself. Instead, something quieter happens. The background effort that had been running without acknowledgement begins to power down. Not all at once, not dramatically. It simply becomes optional. You might still sense activity in the body. Muscles remain responsive. Thoughts still pass through. The nervous system continues to register sound, movement, and change. But none of it asks for your constant participation anymore. This is the difference between being alert and being oriented. Alertness scans. Orientation rests. For a long time, your system may have been alert without needing to be. Not because of danger, but because of habit. Modern environments reward readiness. They condition the body to stay slightly forward, slightly prepared, slightly available. Not enough to feel stressed, just enough to prevent settling. Over time, that forward lean becomes invisible. And when something invisible stops, it doesn't announce itself. It simply ceases to take energy. You may notice that attention no longer feels spread across the room. It doesn't retract inward, it just stops extending. There is a subtle sense of being where you already are. This is not grounding in the usual sense. Nothing is being anchored. Nothing is being stabilized. It is more like attention realizing it does not need to go anywhere else. You might notice that sounds are still heard, but they do not pull. Thoughts still arise, but they do not recruit. Sensations still register, but they do not require interpretation. Everything continues, but nothing claims you. This is why presence cannot be forced. Anything that forces involvement recreates the very condition it seeks to resolve. The system relaxes when it no longer needs to track itself. Notice how, even now, There is no instruction required to remain here, no reminder needed, no posture to maintain. The center does not drift when unattended. It is not a point that moves away when you stop looking. It is not maintained by focus. It is revealed by the absence of effort. As life resumes, you may notice that movement feels cleaner. Not slower, not softer, cleaner. Actions happen without friction. Decisions form without rehearsal. Responses arise without the sense of being pushed. This does not mean you are detached. It means you are no longer bracing. Bracing is subtle. It hides inside responsibility, anticipation, even care. It convinces the body that something must be held together at all times. But nothing essential requires that kind of holding. When bracing releases, you may briefly wonder if something important has been dropped, if you are missing a step, if you should be paying closer attention. This is the nervous system checking for loss. There is none. Nothing has been removed. Nothing has been set aside. Only the extra layer of readiness has dissolved. The system knows how to function without constant supervision. It did before it learned otherwise. You may find that pauses appear naturally, not as breaks, not as intentional rests, just small spaces where nothing is being prepared for. Those spaces do not need to be protected. They are not fragile. They will come and go without consequence. Presence does not need duration to be valid. It does not need to last. It only needs to be unobstructed. This is why nothing here asks to be remembered. Memory immediately turns presence into reference. Reference turns it into effort. There is no benefit in holding on to this. The center remains whether it is noticed or not. It remains during distraction. It remains during focus. It remains during activity. You do not return to it. You stop leaving it. And even that language is more than necessary. Eventually, attention will move outward again. That is natural. Nothing here prevents engagement, but the movement will be lighter, less invested, less total. Something will stay behind, not watching, not monitoring, simply not going along. This is how coherence persists, not by freezing stillness, but by allowing movement without displacement. There is no need to check whether this is happening correctly. There is no correct version of this. The absence of strain does not need to be evaluated. If you notice that you are trying to assess it, that is just habit resurfacing. It will pass on its own. Let the system continue without commentary. There is nothing to integrate, nothing to apply, nothing to take forward. Life will resume exactly as it does, with sound, with motion, with demand. And yet, something fundamental will not be recruited into that demand anymore. Not because you decided so, but because it was never required. Let this end without closure, without summary, without instruction. Nothing further is needed here.